All right, good evening, everyone. So glad you can make it tonight for our first ever Academy Lacrosse Showdown. And this is a show where we have esteemed guests, alumni for each of the military academies that are playing each other in a key sport. And this sport we're talking about tonight is lacrosse. And before I introduce our two guests, I just really want to set the stage of what this is all about. The academy rivalries are very, very special, right? And everyone on this call understands that these games are not just games. And the people that play in these games go on to have tremendous leadership careers in business, in coaching, and in life. And what we're trying to do is remember the good times, reflect on our sports memories, and also discuss the leadership lessons that we learned along the way. And tonight, one of our guests is Adam Silva, who is a dear friend. Adam is currently the Director of Franchise Operations for Superior Fence and Rail Franchising and is a certified executive coach. He was a standout lacrosse defenseman and graduated from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. His athletic success earned him a position on the Patriot League All-Decade Men's Lacrosse team. Coach Silva served as Director of Player Development for Jacksonville University Men's and Women's Lacrosse, and he still dabbles in that, currently. And he's also served in a similar role at Johns Hopkins University under Dave Petramala. He currently coaches as an assistant for the Bowles School men's lacrosse team in Jacksonville, Florida. And truth be told, he was actually coaching in a game just prior to this and rushed off the field with an outstanding margin of up by 10-0. So thank you for being here, Adam, and making time for this. But Adam also held positions as president of the Chesapeake Bayhawks, and he was also the chief program officer of the Wounded Warrior Project, who is a proud partner and sponsor of Soldiers to Sidelines. And that is something that we cherish deeply. So thanks for all of your service with Wounded Warrior Project, Adam. He also sits on the board of several nonprofits, is a trusted advisor to me personally and to Soldiers to Sidelines. Coach Silva is a proud husband and father, and he's currently a double agent in that his son, Miles, played lacrosse and graduated from the U.S. Military Academy, but his younger son, Max, plays for the Naval Academy currently. So that's why this is double agent. So it's going to be very interesting to hear Adam's thoughts. So anyway, welcome, Coach Silva.
Thanks, Harrison. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
And also with us tonight discussing leadership is Kevin Caradona. Kevin is currently a materials program manager at Raytheon Missiles and Defense. He was an All-American lacrosse defenseman for the U.S. Naval Academy and was inducted into the Hall of Fame, or the U.S. Navy Academy Lacrosse Hall of Fame. He served in the Navy for 23 years and has taken his military and leadership experience to business and coaching. He currently coaches Elite Girls Lacrosse Club and has certified through Soldiers to Sidelines. In fact, we were talking about this before. Coach Caradona is one of the first ever certified lacrosse coaches to ever come through Soldiers to Sidelines. So it's so cool to now be back 8 years later and reflecting more on leadership. And we're just so happy to have you here, Coach.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
So if everyone isn't aware, on Saturday, it's a big game. Army plays Navy in lacrosse. And I think just to kick this thing off, I have to turn it over to Coach Silva, where are you going to this game and are you rooting for Navy?
So I am going. My daughter's here from Corpus Christi. She's engaged to a Navy 20 grad who's in flight school, but we're going up to West Point on Saturday. My wife's going to meet us there. Miles is flying in from Fort Riley, Kansas. He'll meet us there. And of course, Max will be on the Navy sideline. And yes, I will have my Navy polo on. And if we can find a seat, I'll be sitting behind the Navy bench for 2 hours. And then I'll decide what I'm going to do post game. So
unbelievable. And this is what's so special. So for me, my favorite part of watching these academy rivalries is how everyone can battle fiercely. I mean, fierce. And we're going to see some clips of this, but then how we can all just come together afterwards because we're all serving the same country. And that is like the true spirit of sportsmanship and athletics. And it's something that I hope reverberates through the rest of our country. So it's cool to see that, right? You play for the U.S. Military Academy, you served in the Army, and then you're just as proud for your kids to attend the Naval Academy and play as well, and then root for them. I think that's a big step.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody graduating Bama sends their kids to Auburn. I'm just saying. So,
All brother and sisterhood.
yeah. Unbelievable.
And I love it. Not only does he say the 4-letter word love to his son, but now he's going to actually say the 4 words of love, which is go Navy, beat Army.
And this is setting the stage. So there's going to be this banter this entire night. And you know what's really cool? So I was watching this 1991 film of Army versus Navy, and Will Huff sent it over to me, and I watched like the whole thing, right? So from the beginning to the end, and it was an outstanding game. Army won in overtime. It was just, it was hard fought from beginning to end. It was super, super physical, and there was some clutch goals. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Army scores the tying goal with 4 seconds left in the regulation to send it into overtime. And you two guys are so special because you're both defensemen, right? Usually when we start talking about like lacrosse highlights, it's guys like our director of sports, of our director of lacrosse, Scott Urick, just shooting goals all the time. But you guys are defensemen. And I want to turn this over to Kevin first, who is in the U.S. Naval Academy Hall of Fame. And what is the mindset that you had to be such a stellar defenseman where you're not always getting the notoriety and the highlights?
I mean, a lot of it, again, it comes back to teamwork. When you get a full team that's in sync and gelling out there, it just helps you perform even better when you're on the field. And that starts in practice. So I'd figured this week, leading up to the Army game, they're going at it. You are going at it until you got to pull it back just to save a lot of your energy. But mentally, you studied your opponents, you know what they're going to bring. I like to say when I was out there in the field that I was silent but deadly. And that's how I left it. I let it talk on the field. And I could see some of the names out here right now, some of my opponents out there. I love playing against them. It was just such a good rivalry.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things I'm hearing is like selfless and teamwork from the defensive side of things. How does that resonate with you, Coach Silva, being a long pole defenseman as well? What made you want to take up that position? And what is your mindset as a defenseman? And how has that actually, imbued in your leadership practice?
So I showed up to high school tryouts as a freshman in 1986, having never played lacrosse before. And I wanted to play defense. I had seen a few games. And so I show up to practice, and all I could afford was a short stick. And so the coach came up to me and he said, "Hey, defensemen play with long sticks." And I said, "Yes, sir. My mom said if I made the team that I could buy one." And the next day I showed up for practice, and that man had a STX long pole, and he put it in my hands and he said, "Here you go. Now you can play defense." That man's name is Tommy Singleton, and I've stayed in touch with him for the last however many years that is, 30 years. Matter of fact, he and I sat at Navy Marine Corps Stadium a few weeks ago and watched the Loyola Navy game. And so from that moment on, I fell in love with not just the game, but that simple gesture. That I've said this, it's the greatest material gift anyone's ever given me. And it literally changed the trajectory of my life. And he didn't have to do it. I look back on that and sometimes wonder why, why me? But I've tried to pay it forward, as much as I can, humbly trying to, help grow the game. For me, being a defenseman, there's two of my teammates are on the call, both played attack. And then of course I ran on the same line with Will. We just, especially at Army, it's just a grit position, and I was never a great stick guy, certainly wasn't the most athletic guy in the world, but you just go out there and you do the best you can for the guy to your left and your right. and get the ball through the midfield up to the attack and let them do their job. And so I think that's just kind of, that's something that's, stayed with me. It's not about recognition for me. It's not even about recognition for the defense. It's about, we can hold you to 4 goals, but if we lose 5-4 or 4-3, then we weren't successful. So.
And that's evident when you're watching this game. And I don't know if everybody on this call is an avid lacrosse fan, but as I'm trying to find like these highlights of these 2 outstanding lacrosse players, what you see is doing the simple routine things perfectly over and over and over again. So to find like the splash play for a defenseman is difficult, but what you see ground balls, right? You see cross field clears, like on the money, on time, and then quick transitions, meaning like dishing the ball to the attackmen who get to have all the notoriety. And that was something that was really sticking out to me. And in here you talk, Adam, it's like that stick you were given wasn't necessarily a material gift. It was like a token or a memento representing like the belief he had in your potential. Is that right?
Well, and I think part of the game, it's the game. We could have an entire discussion about the reputation that lacrosse has been given. And I don't say earned, I say been given over the last, 30, 40 years. I've been very lucky to work with people, to coach people, to be a part of things like Wounded Warrior Project Lacrosse, supporting Lead the Way Foundation. You want to talk about a sport that doesn't get enough credit for the beauty and the gifts that we give each other and take care of each other. Again, that to me was just emblematic of what I've come to know as the community of lacrosse. And yeah, it's not cheap, it's tough, there's barriers to entry, blah, blah, blah. We've had some black guys here and there, but at the end of the day, the lacrosse that I know is truly the medicine game. And that was my first exposure to it.
So cool. And that's a great segue into Kevin. You have some of these mementos that you were just kind of sharing before we went live. The 2 sticks, right? And let's talk, like, why do you still have those sticks? There's something about lacrosse that makes it so great that, like, what does the stick represent in your life?
I would say represents the honor and respect for the game. And I hear Adam talking about money and all that. My background, I'm from a family of 10. I only had one brother at the time ever go to college. One other brother above me, first time ever touching a stick. 7th grade, I think I was handed 2 right-handed gloves because that's what they handed out at school. And I was horrendous. I never stepped on the field the whole game. They had a 4th quarter or a 5th quarter that whoever didn't play, you run out there and it was like rock'em sock'em robots. We're just beating the hell out of each other for 5 minutes. They let us play. But it was that summer where talking to the coaches, talking about wall ball, the simple stuff, practice, get better. And then from there, you start taking off. And you start talking about the love of the game, Adam, and all that, and what it does. If you look at that Navy 91 film, Army Navy, we had 5 guys from my high school playing in that game. Oh, and who do I owe that to? It's Coach DeMore. Whenever I go home back to Long Island, I go see family, friends, and Coach DeMore. And right now, if you see him, he'll be down probably at the beach driving a motorcycle, and he looks like a crazy Santa. And but that's my coach. He steered me to the love of the game, the respect of the game, and to honor your opponent, and to honor yourself, and to be better. And that's why, to this day, from when I got out of the military and when I started first coaching in 1998, I coach because I want to give back what I was given. And that truly is a way to college and a way off of Long Island, believe it or not. That's what got me out into the world, I truly believe, was lacrosse.
So, Kev, who were some of those coaches that really inspired you? You're just talking about one. And
I'll tell you right now, ready? Tim Cox, Coach DeMore, Holly Waterman, Brian Matthews, Matthew Hogan, other coaches along the way that I met. I see Coach Tillo on here, Dennis Yateman, I could go on with all the coaches that I've touched, the Lax Maniacs girls, Coach Gooey, Trey, they're all out there. These are all coaches that when I started to get in the game, they still inspire me, and I grab from them and learn from them. I always find out whenever I'm coaching a season, I learn more than what I can always give to players and to others. And that keeps me young, and it keeps me in the game.
So I'm going to ask Coach Silva the same thing. Like, who were your mentors and coaches along the way? And then while Coach Silva's discussing this, Kevin, I want to come back to you. And if you can recall any specific instances from any of those coaches that really resonate in your mind that affected you even to this day to make you a better person than you are. So over to you, Coach Silva. Who are your mentors in coaching?
So my mentors, they're not to play on words, they're not my mentors in coaching, they're my mentors in life. And I used to say this freely in this order: my father, my grandfather, Jack Emmer, Richie Meade, and Mac DeAnge. Those are the 5 most important men in my life. And I would throw Tommy Singleton in there as well. Ironically, he never coached me. I was on JV, he was on varsity, but he had such an enormous impact. But the lessons that I learned and the lessons I learned not knowing I was learning lessons have literally, like I've said, changed my life, the trajectory of my life and my children's lives and my nieces and nephews' lives. It wasn't just what those coaches instilled upon me and how they, and I'm the first guy that ever owned a lacrosse stick in my family, right? So, having guys like Tommy Singleton and again, Emmer, Meade, and I could go on and on about Coach Meade because of so many of the guys that went through the Naval Academy for that 17-year run, played for Coach Meade. But even Mac DeAnge, the third of those guys who's never gotten any of the credit, but who let us be who we were as players, who challenge us, but let us grow and let us lead. And did it with such an unbelievable humility and selflessness. And guys that are in the game have heard of Mac DeAnge, but if you're a casual lacrosse guy, most people don't know who he is. That guy was an absolute godsend to me as a college lacrosse coach. And again, not just because of X's and O's, but because he taught me things like humility and selflessness that, quite frankly, I had no idea what those 2 things were when I was a teenage kid and an academy kid. So
That's awesome. And I'm grateful for those coaches, for you, because I watched you kind of build your coaching practice from all of those lessons. And then you have then bestowed that onto Soldiers of Sidelines and all of our soldier coaches as being a presenter, an advisor, and a mentor. So you want to talk about the ripple effect. Your coaches inspired you to come up with these ideas that are now helping Soldiers of Sidelines and all of our soldier coaches. So there's just an example of the extenuating power of coaches.
I don't want to steal Kevin because I know Kevin's got a thing to talk about here. I just sent those 3 men a thank you text a week ago. I'm 30 years out of the academy almost, and I just sent those 3 men a text because I was standing on the sidelines at a Bulls lacrosse game, and I literally was saying the same things to our kids that those men used to say to me. And I sent him a text and I said, "You have no idea how you've changed my life and how grateful I am. But I literally heard myself. I heard you through me tonight on the sideline at the game." So.
Wow. Kev, do you recall any moments through your playing career that really stood out to you from the leadership of any of your coaches?
I will go back again to first, I'll go back to 7th grade. And I'll start there with the coach. I could have been cut. And they decided, hey, let's just keep all the players and give these athletes a shot. And that's the one thing coaches got to understand. You are really, like Adam said, a life coach. At that moment, they could have changed my trajectory by cutting me. And who knows if I ever would have stepped on that field again. So I thank them for that opportunity that Tim Cox is out there in the world. And then when I start going up to high school, I will go back to Coach DeMore, one of the passionate coaches that I know on the field. And I see Will Huff on here, and I guarantee you he knows. The energy he brings, the potential that he sees in his athletes, You know, nowadays you start talking about getting recruited for college. Back in the day, it was coach. And in between periods, we would go down to the gym because he was our gym teacher. He would make calls for us. He's checking on our academics. He is setting us on the right tone. He actually came to my house and talked to my parents saying, hey, Kevin has an opportunity for college. They said, hey, we don't have much money. And he goes, don't worry about that. Keep him working hard at home. I'll work with him on the field. You know, he steered me to go try out for Team Long Island, made it twice in a row. We won 2 gold medals. He truly gave me the direction, and he saw the potential in me. And as a good coach, he ensured that I started to grasp that and to take kind of ownership of my life and saying, hey, I'm seeing the vision now that you're talking to. And then again, then from there, again, I got projected up to the Naval Academy, and you start talking at NAPS, the Holly Watermans. And then I was recruited by Richie Meade. And when I ended up getting to Navy, he actually already jumped over to Army. So I had Matt Hogan. And you're talking about staying in touch. I actually talked to Coach Hogan about 2 weeks ago, just seeing how he's doing, catching up with him. When I was in Florida, his teams would come down. We'd meet for dinners. It is a life experience. And I can only hope as a coach, you know, that's great that Adam and I did on this field. But as coaches, we are weaving our players to leave our legacy. I can only hope that I could give back what I was giving as a player out there in the field. And I right now, empty nester, I got my wife. She supports me fully, because she was even asking, why are you coaching? You no kids anymore. I said, I love coaching. I want to keep teaching this next generation what I was taught and what you can become out there.
It's amazing. And I'm so glad you're still serving your country by being a coach right now. And I love hearing these stories, because both you guys talked about your youth and high school coaches. You know, this weekend is special. This is a sexy game coming up. This is Army Navy, you know, top of the lacrosse world showdown on Saturday at Mitchie Stadium, and it's awesome. So everyone wants to see, like, you know, the NCAA, like the Titans clashing, but it's about the youth coaching. It's the, you know, none of us would have gotten there if it wasn't for our 5th grade coach, our 6th grade coach, our 7th grade coach. So it's so humbling to remind everyone that, like, that's where our impact is in the communities. It's at that level, so that we can have these discussions years and years and years down the road, celebrating these higher level games. So I want to take a look at this real quick. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to show, like, what this is about. And like I said, I had a clip of the 1991 game that I need to pull up here. Excuse me, the screen share is not pulling up my Safari.
And you're talking about the community and all that. When I look back, I actually counted my 11 moves. 9 out of my 11 moves, I was either playing lacrosse or coaching lacrosse. The only time I wasn't was in Italy, my first tour, and I was still playing wall ball. And then when I had 2 infant kids, when I was at the University of Maryland. Other than
Yeah. Kev, you're still with us? It's so funny, Kevin, when you're talking about your moves, I thought that was like you only have like 9 moves on the lacrosse field. Like, that's it. Those are your moves. You meant your relocations. Well, we're going to see a couple of your moves here. So just give me a thumbs up if the screen is sharing correctly. Great. So, hey, we're going to take a look here at number 26. Can we get confirmation that's you, Kevin?
That's me.
All right. And this is like one of the clips where you talk about, this is such a great play, but it doesn't get the glitz that, you know, the goal scorers get. But this is so important. I want to actually turn this down. And, you know, we're talking about leverage, talking about patience, right? You think about the positioning you have. It's incredible. And that's a turnover at critical points in this game, because if we go back and look at this here, I mean, this game really it ended up in overtime, and Navy was down. You guys were down 3 goals at one point, right?
Well, they were down 4 goals twice. We went up 4-0. They came back,
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe, and tied it. We went up 9-5. They came back and tied it. They wouldn't go away.
Wouldn't go
Um,
away.
No. And then they took the lead. They were up 10-9.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And then you keep them down there, Kev. That's awesome. And then as I fast forward here, I'm going to get to this other point. Let me just get to this 2450. All right, we'll start right here. Now this play is awesome. Okay, so this is you, Kev. Do you remember this play by any chance? So real quick, what was this designed for you to help here?
No, not at all. He just turned his back to me, and I knew by him doing that, my guy was out of the play, and I did have 13 up there covering it.
Okay, so what's your responsibility technically right now?
Right now, I'm somewhat filling the gap. So number 13, there's another higher guy. I'm filling a gap, and we have 5. So I somewhat got pushed down to help prevent, because again, you got a short stick down there. Never like short sticks on the side. So that's where we're going to come and slide. He completely turned, and that's when it's just an automatic, I call and I go.
And then you get the strip, boom. Now watch this. So as you're making this play, oh my gosh.
That was one of my mottos, actually, is ground ball, never to lose them. If that ball goes down, I consider it's mine.
And he had to learn the hard way. That is an unbelievable play. Super aggressive. And that's what we start to see. You start to see the violence in this game because of the passion, right? So, and it's like you come together. I mean, we're out there for war, metaphorically speaking, right? And so what makes lacrosse different, Kevin, like than the other sports? Like when watching those clips, why is it different? Why is it special?
Well, I mean, it is the fastest game on 2 feet. It is a team sport, and you're also allotted that individual effort out there. And you're talking about the teamwork. You were just saying, hey, the slide and all that. I was so in sync with a lot of my D middies and my middies and my attackers. I knew where they were going to go. I knew where I wanted to throw the ball. It's just a lot of excitement out there. And it truly goes down to lacrosse in general. I mean, it is the creator's game. And I truly hold it to that aspect that we are better. And I'll admit it. I think lacrosse players should be held higher standard than other sports, just the way it is, because out of the respect for the game, where it came from, and like you're talking about, the rivalry right there. I respected every opponent that I won against, every team that I won against.
So I want to ask you that question, Adam. Like, why is lacrosse different?
Well, for me, so I know it doesn't look like it anymore, but I was a soccer player. I told Kevin I was recruited to play soccer at Army and lacrosse at Navy. So I went and played lacrosse at Army. Go figure, right? But I played basketball as a kid, baseball as a kid. When I found lacrosse, it was like nirvana. You know, it was everything, you know, all of the sports combined. Now, I never played hockey. I played street hockey, but never on the ice. But, you know, you got the violence of football and hockey. I was at a convention once, and I think it was Berkman at Salisbury. Somebody asked him, what's the greatest book you've ever read about lacrosse? And he said, Knight and Newell on basketball. So meaning basketball or lacrosse is basketball with a guy behind the goal. So if you really want to learn about lacrosse, you should learn about basketball, pick and roll, you know, pressure, full court press, etc. You know, the stamina of soccer. I mean, again, I could go on and on. It's just, to me, it was everything. And my mother wouldn't let me play football. So she didn't know anything about lacrosse. And so I snuck it in. And, she went to the first game and realized it was the most violent thing she'd ever seen, and I kind of got over on her. So
Oh, yeah, you did. So we're going to see how you were playing football as one of the aspects of lacrosse here. And this actually starts off with this is an outstanding play by Coach Caradona right here. It goes up. That's the shot. Okay. Clear. Boom. Kev, ground ball, scoops it up. Now, oh, Kev, what are you thinking right here? You're unabated to the goal. You're a long stick defenseman here. What are you doing?
I was looking down to the right. That defenseman pushed out, and I said, "All right, I got this." Now the angle of the goalie, I did not have a right-handed shot, so I needed to come across.
So,
and no one was open on the left side, as you see. No one was open. I said, "All right, I'm going." There was no questioning it. I'm gone.
And be honest, like, are you just so stoked right now? Like you're gonna get a goal right now. Like as a defenseman, you're gonna score a goal in a tight game against Army.
SS Caradona was set and sail.
It is on. So you see it. Look, he's taking it. He's taking his shot. But then, like, the whole thing is, Adam said, he wasn't allowed to play football maybe until this moment. As he slides, Kevin just admitted he had to take a lefty shot, and that is the result.
Sent me back to plebe year, and I no longer could talk any more than 2 syllables after that.
Well, so look, if you play that tape through, you'll see that I go to lift my left arm. Watch my left arm. Well, if you keep running it, and I shit you not, December, the Tuesday after the Army Navy game, about 6 months later, I was getting shoulder surgery because of Kevin Caradona.
Oh my God.
That's a true story. And I didn't know that was you, Kevin, until this week. I had no idea.
And I didn't know that was you hit me. I thought that was Will. The way you full on sprint, that hurt.
Oh, that was a top-notch collision. And we think about this. I actually want to bring up a little bit of a controversial subject these days, but I think it's really important. Think about the banter we're having going back and forth, right? The physicality of this sport. And we use the word violence, and sometimes that can have a negative connotation, right? Where everyone's like, oh, we try to get the violence out. But I believe, at least for boys and for me growing up as an athlete, the violence and the risk of injury actually gives weight, importance to all the life lessons that we learn in sports. That's the comment I want to make, and I want to hear your reactions. And I'll let Adam talk first. What do you think? The importance or the value of violence and physicality in sports is, if any?
Yeah, and it's it's controlled violence, and it's not cheap. There's an important distinction there, and you're not trying to hurt people. But let's be clear: if lacrosse was a non-contact sport, I would not be sitting on this call today. I fell in love with the game because it was an outlet for me as a competitive kid who, again, wasn't allowed to play football. I loved the physical aspect of the game. Our practices at Army, and I'm not going to speak for Kevin, but I can only imagine how violent their practices were. And we weren't trying to hurt each other. We were competing. I don't know if he's still on the call. Steve Heller is probably the toughest dude I've ever played lacrosse with or against. I mean, it was a freaking nightmare to guard, and he was ultra competitive. And I love that. That was a big part of what attracted me to the game. And not to get off on a tangent, but I'm kind of at that precipice now where the game is moving to where they're trying to take collision out of the sport. And I see some value to it, but again, I would not have gravitated toward this game as passionately as I did were it not for the ability to go out and, bang heads with my competitors. So.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Kevin? How do you relate to the physicality, the violence, and the collision in the sport?
again, I like to keep it clean. It's needed in the game. You teach, as coaches, you teach kids how to hit. You need to have the aspect of checking hitting in the game. I don't like games where it turns into, hey, I coach girls lacrosse right now, that it turns into a girls lacrosse game where you're not allowed to hit or good hits start getting called. It is a part of the game. Again, it came from the Native Americans back in the day. They used it as an alternative to war and all that. And that's how we need to somewhat keep that tradition going. And obviously, don't play dirty out there. That's part of respecting the game. And I still remember we had one of our guys got hit clean, deflated a lung in the middle of the game. And it was a clean hit. No one was mad at it at all. And we're like, all right, that's part of the game. He was up next week going at it. You talk about hard practices. We fought in our practices each other. In the locker room, you left it out on the field. Yeah, Adam's laughing. I know I'm sure they had many fights.
Yeah. I love it. And maybe that's like a testosterone thing, but I agree, guys. Like it needs to be clean, and no one's trying to injure anyone.
No.
But the physicality, the violence, the hurt is a good thing, because I feel like that's what we're sacrificing when we get out there. It's our ability to overcome the adversity of pain, right? Can I endure the shot that Adam just delivered on Kevin, right? And I hear, Kevin, you talking like you wear that as a badge of honor, right? Like you had a tremendously successful career, and we've all taken shots like that, but we got up, right? We got up. And I feel like there is such an importance to the physicality of sports like lacrosse that I think lends to our ability to grow as people. So I want to now kind of segue, like everything we were just kind of talking about how all of these experiences have now become part of your leadership success in both coaching and business, right? What were some of those experiences, Adam, that you had over those years playing for the U.S. Military Academy that really, and this is different than the first question I asked you about, like the lessons that your mentors gave you. And I'm talking about your playing experience and how that has shaped your leadership practice and your success in business.
I think, for a couple things, several years ago, somebody asked me what the most important thing I learned at West Point was. And my instinctive and immediate answer was, I learned how to fail. You go to an academy, I went there thinking that the sun rose and set on my behind, only to get there and with 4,400 of my closest friends to realize I wasn't as special as I thought I was. And then I stepped foot on the lacrosse field in the fall of 1989. And I'm guarding a guy named Jimmy Gorman, who actually scored the winning goal in this game in '91. And I turned around and Jimmy was nowhere to be found. Like he backdoor cut me, and I was literally planted in the grass. And I was like, holy shit, I'm not as good as I thought I was, And so that was an important learning thing for me, was A, being given the freedom to fail, and then being able to respond or rebound from it. Failure's not fatal until you get to the big army. But and then the second thing was the ability to really form deep, meaningful relationships with other men. Because we're taught to put a mask on and be tough guys, rub some dirt on it, don't be soft, don't be a mama's boy, all that stuff. And it wasn't until probably my junior year, and specifically with a guy named Kevin O'Rourke, that I really, really started to understand that having a relationship built on vulnerability and getting to know a guy on your team was probably one of the strongest bonds that I could have ever possibly created. And so it was important that I knew Kevin on the field as a player. But what really cemented our relationship and helped build the success that we had on that team was that, in addition to other guys, but with Kevin specifically, because he and I were oil and water, and I then started to get to know Kevin. I started to learn about his family, about his parents, about some of his struggles and fears. And we spent a long time driving to Long Island on a couple of weekends, these 1 hour trips that take you 3.5 hours to get down to the island. And you get to know a guy pretty well with some windshield time. And then that kind of spiderweb throughout the team. And so, believe it or not, later on in life, and it took me a while, but later on in life, I practiced the same thing in business. You know, being vulnerable enough to let people get to know you, and also putting in the time, effort, and energy to get to know them, and building deeper relationships than, you know, the basic stuff that you're taught or allowed to do in the workforce.
That's that makes me want to ask you another question that I understand could be another 6 hours, but try your best. How are you coaching others to embrace failure and to create those bonds? Right. So you got to experience that as a player, right? And you understood like how important that was. But now as a leader in business and coaching, how are you creating those conditions for someone who might not have played sports?
Well, this spring specifically, and I'm not being goofy here, I'd probably give myself a B- or a C as a coach. It's been a bit of a transition getting back, you know, going from Hopkins and JU to high school. And so I've been really hard on the kids, and I have to catch myself. And there's a couple things that go into that answer. Number one, I don't penalize kids with the exception of effort and attitude mistakes. You know, if we had a kid tonight, we put in a situation, gave him an opportunity, goes on the field, makes a nice play, and instead of just finishing the play, he looks at his opponent and calls him the P word. Well, he's standing right next to the referee, and that's a penalty, you know, and I'm like, you're not playing anymore. You know, if you'd have dropped the ball or got stripped, that's one thing. But to be, you know, act like a punk, that's a completely different thing. And then the other part of that too, Harrison, is really important to acknowledge and reward success. You know, point out the failure. When we watch film, we watch the mistakes. We watch what, you know, whether we gave up a goal or got beat or made a mistake. But we also want to balance that with making sure that we're affirming these kids and being real positives in their lives. Because in some cases, they may be struggling all over the place when they're not with us. And we want to make sure that this is not a drag or a job. You know, so you handle the effort and attitude mistakes, I think, with a firm hand. But let's celebrate success and make sure that we're teaching them along the way.
Really cool. I think, you know, when I look at some of those clips, you know, Kevin taking that ball to the crease, you know, it didn't turn out the way that Kevin wanted, but I thought that was an unbelievable effort play, right? Like, you know, because you hear him walk through like what he was thinking in those moments. Those are all great effort-based decisions that did not turn out into a goal, and probably would have got, you know, teased by his teammates later watching film. But that's like a super, super good play that just didn't have the result that anyone intended, with the exception of you, Adam. Like that's what you wanted. So
I heard it afterwards. The almost, they said, oh, tough win. Oh my God, that hit. Yeah, I thank you. May I have another?
But that's the best part about that. That's what an All-American does. That's what someone who makes the Navy Lacrosse Hall of Fame does, is you take those opportunities, and it's not about missing. It's about that was the right thing to do in that time, and you had the courage to take it to the crease and then get up and still ball out for the rest of the game. And so with that,
I was actually more upset when I got knocked in a crease. They should have stopped it there. Instead, they got it up to half field, and we had to call an injury timeout so I wouldn't get taken off.
Wow. Wow.
So
then think about those experiences. You just heard Adam answer that question. How has your playing experiences influenced your leadership practice all throughout your 23 years in the Navy, and then now up into Raytheon?
Well, now when you start, you know, talking about the academy stuff, I believe we are all wired the same way. You know, the commitment out there to duty, the commitment to others, the teamwork and stuff. And that's what I've learned as a youth, and definitely in high school, the teamwork aspect and what a team can do over an individual, you know, the team before me. And that's how I always grew into it. And that's what I always believe is important when you're coaching out there. So I kind of took that on the road, and when I got out there, it was all about how can I improve the team? How can I inspire them? How can I motivate them? You know, right now you're talking about coaching. Adam transitioning. I'm actually living in Southern Tucson right now, coaching girls lacrosse. You need 12 girls on the team. I have 9 right now. I don't even have to play enough for a full field. But what I love about it is I have 9 girls that are committed and passionate about the game. And we're able to talk to the other coaches that willing to play 8-on-8 versus us. So even though we started out the year with 12, we lost 3 girls, there was just no commitment. And that's all I look for is that passion, the commitment, the inspiration. Once we get all that and we start developing technique, then from there we could start strategizing and stuff and really take it to the next level. I need a base foundation for my team. And a lot of that is respecting the game. And so that's where I'm at now, lacrosse wise. Work wise, believe it or not, one of the first mottos that I said to my teammates when I joined the Raytheon program was 1 team, 1 fight. I always wrote that. It's in my closure out. I go 1 team, 1 fight. You know, we do make mistakes, but we're there as a team. We're there to pick each other up, and we're there to succeed as a team. So that's where I'm at. A lot of my passion just comes about respecting the game. Adam talks about players not respecting the game. I've seen that before with coaches and stuff, and I've talked to them. I've told them on the side, hey, you're not respecting the game. You're not respecting your players or myself. I have no problem doing it. If I don't call you out, who's going to call you out? And yeah, so that's what it's all about.
Kev, what do you mean, like, to you, what is disrespecting the game? What's an example of disrespecting the game?
How about on the field, dirty hits, talking trash to other coaches? I've seen that out there, talking trash to fans, talking back to a ref. I've actually been on the field before, and I remember right in front of my bench in high school, I had an attackman. I was kind of taking it to him. He started wailing on me in my helmet. I dropped my hands and just sat there. The ref's throwing a flag. And after he was done, my coach said, hey, enjoy he told the player when he's coming off, he goes, my player is not going to fight you. He wants to play on that field and he wants to play with respect. And I learned a lot there about that. And I don't like the disrespecting of the game. One of my first coaching gigs in San Diego, I actually was traveling up to Orange County. Our team, 3-0. We were ranked number 1. It was actually an overnight, and I did room checks. I smelled pot in a room. 5 guys came out, found out what was going on, talked with them. They admitted they smoking pot. I actually, right away, got all the parents together, and I also talked to the team parent. I said, hey, I have values on this team, and those are not the values that I'm coaching. These 5 players are gone. He goes, Coach, we all support you here. Who? I said, your son, my captain, leading scorer in the county, is off my team. Take him home. You just got to have values out there and you coach. And that changed the trajectory of our team for that season, but it really set a good base for our program going forward. It sent ripples effect there. I was talking to lawyers next week and they're trying to keep them on. I said, my field, my team, these players are not coming back. I don't care about what's going to happen in school.
Wow. You had to deal with their lawyers.
Oh, it was interesting because I'm in my summer whites during my lunch break. This is a volunteer job. They had a lawyer. They had all the parents. And then they had the players in the back. In the front was the AD in there. And the nerve of that lawyer say, hey, coach, we heard that the parents bought you a 12-ounce beer. I said, yeah, I'm 6 foot, 210 pounds. You tell me my BAC. I looked at the players in the back. I said, guys, you either have integrity or you don't, and your parents are setting a bad example for you.
Wow.
Yep. They all walked out. And afterwards, athletic director and the coach said, the principal said, we love what you stand for. We want to support lacrosse at our school.
How did that turn out for the kids and the parents? What was the after effect of all of this?
I had, again, lost 5 guys, 3 of which were 2 were seniors, leading scorers. It changed what happened in the season. We actually still made the playoffs, But what we actually had was an understanding of, this is a line. It doesn't matter if you're the best guy or the guy on the bench. I'm going to hold you accountable to the values that we have on this field. And that's what coaches need to do out there. They have to hold those values. What did it eventually do? I believe a year or two from there, it actually turned it into a sanctioned San Diego lacrosse club out there that high schools all picked up. This was kind of a foundation that our school was fully on board on this, that we went from a club team to official school sport. And a lot of this was with the other coaches around, that we set these values and standards that we wanted to adhere to so that we can become an official sport. Me as a coach, it grew me. I mean, it's just, that strong foundation of integrity and disrespecting my game of lacrosse and all our games of lacrosse out there, because that's what it's about. And that's what they did to themselves and they did to our team.
Wow. Whatever happened to those kids? Did you?
Yeah, what was odd is the one captain, leading scorer, from what I hear, he went on to college, got kicked off the team for smoking pot. What do you know?
Wow.
Yeah, but I did have one of the players come back the following year, tried to come on. I said, the one thing you haven't done is apologize to the team, put him out front. He apologized. I walked out there, shook his hand, gave him a hug. I said, guys, welcome your teammate back. There was no hesitation. We make mistakes in life. This wasn't a mistake that permanently killed him. It just hurt him for that season, and he learned from it.
What a tremendous life coaching moment. And that's why we need more soldier coaches in our communities doing things exactly like that. And I'm sure, Adam, you have comments and thoughts as you hear that story. So without asking a question, I'm just going to turn the mic over to you.
Well, this is a little bit, I would say, less intense than that story, and I'm not surprised at all, knowing Kevin, that he stood by those principles and made that decision. When I got to Jacksonville University a couple years ago, I'm not an X's and O's coach, so they call me the director of player development, and basically that means effort, attitude, and all the off the field stuff: culture, mission, vision, values. Again, stuff that I took from corporate America and apply in the locker room and on the field. We made a decision at some point. Again, this may be difficult for middle school, high school, or whatnot, but I think in the second half of the first season that I was there, we started to film our sidelines during games. And we would look at the energy and the intensity and the participation on the sidelines. My job during games was to make sure that our guys were not talking to the opponents or to the officials. And it was one of those things where several of the kids to this day still don't like me because they were acting like thugs and punks on the sideline, and I'm like, why are you talking to them? You're sitting on the sideline. That may clue you into your ability, number one, but number two, you should be cheering for your teammates. You should be echoing calls. Then I come to bowls this year. We set up a scrimmage at the beginning of the season with one of my teammates, Chris Auclair, who's a class of 95 team captain. And, his teams, they're struggling. They're building a program up in Richmond Hill, Georgia, outside of Fort Stewart. We brought them down. We probably beat them 17, 18 to 2 or 3, something like that. And we're in the middle of the game, and our guys on our sideline start talking shit to their players. And I just about lost it on the sideline. I'm like, first of all, he's my friend, even if he wasn't. Second of all, what are you doing? Like, that's not respecting your opponent or the game. And so those are the things. Like, I coach the sideline as much as I coach the field. And I've been on the opposite sideline with a lot of lacrosse coaches who absolutely have lost control over their sideline behavior. And it's an embarrassment, and it starts during warmups, and again, I look at it as a responsibility. Yeah, I got to focus on what's going on the field and make sure I'm making adjustments and putting guys in a position to succeed and defend the opposition. But it's as much my responsibility to make sure that the conduct on our sideline, that I'm responsible for that. So again, that was kind of all over the place, but I can't, it's effort, attitude, culture, conduct. And I'm so offended by so much of what I see nowadays that I get really passionate about making sure that our guys are conducting themselves in a certain way.
Yeah, Adam, and that wasn't all over the place. That was perfectly succinct. And you're just, corroborating what Kevin was talking about is having values, integrity, and sticking to them. So whether it's smoking pot on an away game or it's the way you're conducting yourself on the sideline, it all matters. And this is the beauty of sports. This is why we need great soldier coaches out there, because that's the way you learn these lessons in life. I feel so bad for everyone that doesn't get to play lacrosse and have coaches like you guys where they don't learn that. They just get to go do whatever. There's no boundaries. There's no rules. There's no code of ethics that are talked about and reinforced. So like when I hear Kevin's story, the folks that got kicked off and didn't come back, I mean, what a wonderful life lesson. The parents that bring the lawyer, they're robbing that student of a tremendous growth opportunity, right? And I'm just so grateful for you guys, for being here and just being the coaches that you are, because you're also inspirational to everybody else on this call that coaches, because we need to just keep doing this and not only spreading the word and the power of lacrosse, but also the power of coaching. And Will Huff just put in a comment in the chat where everyone on this call tonight, come join us in Virginia, in Nokesville, Virginia, June 17th and 18th for Shootout for Soldiers. It's just going to be a great time for all of us to get together, maybe play some lacrosse, coach some lacrosse, but really just share in the power of the sport and the fellowship that this leadership brings. Before we go, we got 2 minutes. Thoughts on the game on Saturday? Who's going to win? Why? And this is your moments, Adam and Kevin, to dig each other. The gloves come off. Army, Navy, and I'm most interested to hear what Adam's going to say because he's got a dog in the fight. Oh, Kev. Oh, I love it. Kevin, all action. Oh, yes.
Kevin could probably still play. Actually, he's in good shape. I will say this, that night, so they came to Army in 1990. So the even years it's at West Point, they kicked the living hell out of us in 1990. Brian Keith, I think, was on that team. I can't remember if Paul Basel was playing attack.
Field, Mike Herger, all those guys.
Herger, yep. Sean Donnelly was healthy, I think.
Yep.
I mean, they were a freaking freight train. I think it was like 18-7, and it wasn't that close. I mean, they kicked the living hell out of us. So the next year, and we hadn't beaten them for 4 or 5 years. The next year, we go to Navy. It's 85 degrees outside, by the way, and we're from up, New York. And they were better than we were. They were a better team than we were in 1991, in my opinion. And then 92, I think we were clearly better. And then 93, I felt like we were better and they beat us. So I go in this weekend, I can't lose. I'm an Army alum. I think they're probably the better team. I got a kid on the Navy team. If it's anything like 1991, the better team may not win. So you never know with this game.
You can get into politics.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you answered that. I mean, that was the most middle of the road, best answer I've ever heard in my life. Brady, this is recorded, right? Like I need to take notes on that answer. So here's your opportunity, Kevin, to back up your action with your words.
Throw out the record. It doesn't matter right now. Army, congrats on that Cornell victory. That is awesome. And I root for you every other day of the year, but this Saturday coming up. What I love is you're coming in. I think you're ranked 5 in the nation. Huge win. Navy's not even on the radar. Hasn't grasped the Patriot Conference yet.
Yeah.
If you want a game that could define your season, this is it right now. Yeah. From their perspective, you beat Army, you're going to set ripples through the lacrosse world. You're going to make a name for yourself. You're then going to go on to play one more game. You win that, now you're talking postseason, but you only have one more game left. I think it's going to be a hell of a game out there. They're going to be loading up Mitchie Stadium. They're trying to do it, and it's going to be a battle. But just like all good battles, it's going to come down to those little things on the field, the ground balls, the intensity, the playing relentless and being a team out there. And you just never know, because look at Army football, 8-3 last season. Navy was 3-8, and who won? You could never know who's going to be winning this game. It truly comes down to that experience right now in practice and who wants it more that day. The little things will matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to watch this. This is unbelievable. And I think Navy's up in the series. I think it's 62-36 and 3. Is
Yep.
That's the
Yeah,
record?
they're definitely way ahead. And again, they went on the 60s, they were dominant. And then they went on a run while Coach Meade was there. But yeah, they've historically owned the series. Joe Alberici's, I think, won more than he's lost since he's been at Army.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the reasons why Richie still isn't there, but that's another discussion. But yeah, it's you never know. This senior class at Army is interesting too. I think they've got 19 seniors on this team,
Wow.
and a good number of those guys play considerable minutes. So it's going to be an interesting day.
Sure is.
It's going to be loud in that stadium, and that's going to be intimidating as always. Again, Army is coming in strong.
Yeah.
Well, hope everyone tunes in. It's going to be exciting. I love getting the lacrosse community online together. It's just the most passionate group of athletes and coaches. There is something so special about lacrosse that it's just different from the other sports. It just is in its own right. And please reach out to Will Huff if you'd like to join us in Nokesville, Virginia for Shootout for Soldiers. It's a great time for all of us to come together and have some fellowship. I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and we're going to leave you on Thunderstruck. Good night, everyone.